It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A. Going to be answering your questions once again for AskSCW straight after this. So welcome back to AskSCW, once again answering your questions in the wrestling community. Many great topics on the way today. Which superstars are going to be called up from NXT to Raw and SmackDown? The medical update for Charlotte is going to be on Raw. Going to give my sort of take on that. Zelina Vega is back in WWE. She's on SmackDown. Going to give my reaction to that return. And as well as that, Happy Corbin. Will it work as a babyface? What's the situation going on with Baron Corbin on SmackDown? But first off, let's get on with our first question this week from Renegade Brian. And he asks, what is your dream SummerSlam 2021 match card? So a very fun way to kick off the video this week. Gives me a chance to do some fantasy booking. Of course, I haven't got to do an actual prediction. It's if I had the pencil, who I would bring in, what I would do. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. And of course, let's go straight to the main event. And surprise, surprise, it seems to be the match that everybody wants for the Universal Championship. John Cena is rumoured to return. And I do think it's the biggest match that WWE could put on with that return. It is John Cena going for that 17th World Championship, going for the Universal Championship from Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, head of the table. And I think that would be a fantastic match because Roman is much more in his character work now than what he was previously. I think that it would definitely be, he wouldn't be eaten alive on the microphone at this time by John Cena, in my opinion. With Paul Heyman by Roman Reigns' side, I think this would be a really fun feud on the build to SummerSlam, and it would just solidify Roman Reigns another big victory on this what seems to be epic title reign, which by that point would be near enough a year long as well. So credit has to be given where it's due for the Tribal Chief. But one thing that's interesting as well, what I'd have lurking in the background is my Money in the Bank winner, if I had the choice, would be Kevin Owens. And of course, KO has been saying to Paul Heyman on Talking Smack and even on the phone this week for the longest time that he is coming for Roman. He has not forgotten about Roman Reigns. So Kevin Owens will be used as that idea in the build here for SummerSlam because, well, as well, he debuted taking out John Cena. So it can almost be the case of whoever wins here, the biggest match possible, but I'm going to be the one walking away with the headlines. And of course, that can create its own controversy. Would the Usos go and protect Roman and stop KO from cashing in? So I'd have that dynamic going on as well. There's a big storyline underneath the service to go with the big storyline as well of John Cena looking to get that 17 World Championship, and of course Roman Reigns continuing to be the head of the table. Next I would go for the WWE Championship. Bobby Lashley still the champion against Brock Lesnar. Yes, I would bring Brock back. This is a dream match I really want to see, and I think it's very fitting for a stadium environment. I'd love to see it at SummerSlam this year if it was to go down in Vegas. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, either way from the result, I think I prefer Lashley to go over of the two because then it would solidify Lashley as that top guy as well. I think that that's what superstars like Cena, Lesnar, they should be doing at this point, is putting the talent that's there every day and make sure that those are the ones that are the top of the card. So people start looking at them as the top stars rather than the people that have to keep being brought back in part-time as the draw. I'm going to go for Seth Rollins against Edge. I mean, that seems to be self-explanatory at this point. I mean, Edge has kind of taken Seth Rollins' opportunity away at SummerSlam, so Seth at that point may cost Edge. We'll see it Money in the Bank, but definitely Seth that way then can get his win over Edge. And it's definitely a dream match. It's a match a lot of people want to see. It's definitely on that bucket list if we're going to have matches for Edge going forward. Let's turn our attention to the Women's Championship matches on the card. Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks, I think, seems nailed on. Sasha due to return anytime now. As this is SummerSlam, I wouldn't add too much of the stakes and just make it the rematch. If they want to do a gimmick match, like I'd like to see them have an Iron Man match like they did for Sasha and Bayley back at Takeover of Respect. I'd like that somewhere down the line, but I wouldn't do that here as SummerSlam. It's a big event and many matches in. Becky Lynch to return, yes, and I've got her going back for the Raw Women's Championship. The championship she never lost, so I'll have her going against Rhea Ripley, who is still the champion at this point. You're probably wondering then what's going to go on with Charlotte Flair. Well, we've never had a true rivalry with Charlotte and Alexa Bliss. They had the one-off match at Survivor Series, I believe it was 2017, but we've never had an actual program with these two, and they're on the same show, and who knows with the draft coming on if that will continue after this. So for me, I would have Charlotte against Alexa Bliss. Elsewhere on the card and not in the main event, giving them a break for the championship matches, Drew McIntyre can have that match with Jinder Mahal. I know both of them would really like to do this, almost that 3&B, where they started, where they got to, and where they are now. I think it would be a great SummerSlam match. It's a great placement for these two to have their match. For the Raw Tag Team Championships, I've got AJ Styles and Omos against RK Bro. I think that's self-explanatory there for you. RK Bro feel like the natural fit to win those championships from AJ and Omos. Maybe a breakup from them two can happen. We can get AJ back to being on a singles run, or just Omos being the bodyguard in the meantime, and Omos can have singles matches if and where necessary. But for me, I want to see AJ get back into that singles championship picture, if I'm being brutally honest. For the United States Championship, let's go for Sheamus defending against Damian Priest. I think Priest is in a very prime position right now, and I'd like to see him go for a mid-card championship. I think it's the right time for that, to pull the trigger, and let's see if we can get Priest as a top guy by the start of 2022. I would like to see Keith Lee in this position, but of course, not knowing his status right now, obviously we don't know when he'll be brought back, but certainly he could be a challenger that could be waiting in the wings. For the Intercontinental Championship, on the other hand, perhaps a potential opener for the show, who knows. I'd have Apollo Crews defending against Cesaro. I think it's time for a title change for me personally. I've enjoyed Apollo's run, but I think Cesaro, for the same reason, I think right now he's gone for the top championship. He wasn't successful. I give him the IC title, let him have a run with that now and see how that will go over a number of months. If all continues to go well, then towards the end of the year, let's give him another renewed push towards the top end of the card, see if we can make another main eventer out of the Swiss Superman. And one more match on the main card then for me, and of course Zelina Vega is back, so let's fantasy book, shall we? Let's see Aleister Black coming back to WWE, actually getting to have that program with Big E, because I was interested to see where that was going to go. I'd have liked to see how that would have gone down, so Big E versus Aleister Black will be my last pick for the main card. For the kickoff, I would have two matches on the kickoff as well. I'd have the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, Fatal 4-Way Environment, the Mysterios defending against Alpha Academy, because I think they've been on a roll right now, but especially with Otis on his single run, the Street Profits, and yes, I would include the Usos on the kickoff, because it fits in quite well with the narrative right now, because when they're with Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, they're in the main event, and of course when it comes to SmackDown, they're the opener. When it comes to pay-per-view, they make the kickoff, so I think that's kind of that good dynamic with that. And one other match for the kickoff, I wanted the New Day there, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, so I will do the New Day against the Viking Raiders. I think the Viking Raiders deserve more pay-per-view time as well. They seem to be number one contenders right now for the Raw Tag Team Championships, so I think this would be a fun match to establish who would be right to go for the next championship opportunity on the Raw side. So that's my SummerSlam dream card there for you. Let me know what your thoughts in the comments below, and what matches you would like to see at SummerSlam. If this was the match card at SummerSlam, would you actually be excited to see it? I'm keen to interact and know your thoughts in the comments below. Lorenzo Carrillo, my next question is now here on AskSCW. What title reign from the ThunderDome PC era would you like to see with fans, and why? Aside from Drew McIntyre, and will Sasha Banks be in this year's Women's Money in the Bank ladder match? Always great to be part of the Q&A. Looking forward to your thoughts on these top topics. Well, thank you, and it's always great to have your questions as well. I really do appreciate them. And yeah, Drew McIntyre was taken away. Obviously, that's the obvious answer, isn't it? But going in, what I would say instead, I mean, it would be kind of interesting to know with Roman Reigns, because WWE have had they've been able to play it safe, haven't they, with playing the heel turn and playing this character and kind of delivering it over a series of weeks and months without actually fans being there to interact with it. Would fans have been booing Roman Reigns, or would fans have actually got to this point where they were cheering Roman Reigns by this point? It's going to be interesting with that dynamic when fans actually return, how they will actually take to Roman Reigns with this character, the Tribal Chief. And of course, we saw at WrestleMania he was booed, which means WWE were doing a great job with this. So I'm hoping that is going to continue, because I don't want a babyface Roman Reigns anytime soon. But that would have been fascinating to know how that would have played out in front of fans. I suppose if I was to pick one, that probably would have been the one that I would go with. As for Sasha Banks being in the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, it's certainly a possibility. You wouldn't rule it out. But what I would say is I'm going to go with no, and here's my reason why. So far, Sonya Deville has been actually saying to each person that they are just going into the Money in the Bank ladder match on the SmackDown side for the women. So although she could do that with Sasha Banks and would be well within her right to, but so far the people that have been announced for the match, Zelina Vega and Carmella, have both then been in losing efforts to Liv Morgan, who's trying to prove herself to get into the Money in the Bank ladder match as well. I think that another person next week will be announced. Liv Morgan will probably beat them again, and then I expect Liv Morgan to actually have to qualify to get the last spot for the Money in the Bank ladder match. That's if I had to sort of see where I think the storyline could be going. going, and I do hope that this is actually a proving ground for someone like Liv Morgan to actually become a player on SmackDown, because she deserves to be given an opportunity, and I think this is a good way to do so. Could it be like a Liv Morgan versus authority figure Sonya Deville storyline? Would Sonya, perhaps there's been rumours of her coming back to the ring, would she announce herself for Money in the Bank? So there's lots of different directions that this could go into, and I'm interested and fascinated how it's going to play out. So for that reason, I'm going to say that no, Sasha Banks, I don't think will be in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I think she can return and just go straight on revenge for Bianca Belair for losing in the main event of WrestleMania on that night one, and try to win the SmackDown Women's Championship back at SummerSlam. Noob and Cove, our next questions for us now. What's the medical update segment on Charlotte Flair in this coming Monday's Raw? What are your thoughts on Zelina Vega's return and joining the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match? And is Bayley going to be written off in an I Quit match at Money in the Bank? Well, let's start with Bayley, because we were just talking about in the last segment there with Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, how I think that'd probably be the natural fit and direction for SummerSlam. Bayley did have some choice words there with this I Quit match that's been set up for Money in the Bank against Bianca Belair, that if she was to quit, that she'd probably quit SmackDown, she'd probably quit WWE, she'd even quit competing altogether, which is very, very strange wording, especially if you're not going to follow up on it. So I'm interested in where that's going to go as a storyline direction. I really hope that Bayley isn't going to be leaving us anytime soon. I think that certainly with the character we've got, Bayley is one of the best that's around right now. So I was hoping if it's like a loser leaves SmackDown, that would make a lot of sense, because I think Bayley should go to Raw in the next draft anyway. I think, for example, her versus Rhea Ripley would be a fantastic rivalry we could watch play out over the autumn-winter season anyway. So yeah, I'm hoping this doesn't lead to anything like that, but I guess it's a time will tell situation. I suppose it could put so much, on Bayley's back that maybe she finds a way to win and becomes that desperate. She would perhaps put Bianca Belair through these awful situations, and it makes the I Quit stipulation all the more fascinating. But at the same time, like I say, I don't want to see Bayley going anywhere at the moment. I want to see it at least remain in WWE. At worst, I want to see her go to Monday Night Raw. So for me personally, it's going to be interesting what happens, but I guess we're going to have to wait till the next SmackDown to see if anything is done with the follow-up to what she has said this week. But as a match, as a stipulation, I'm quite looking forward to it. I think Bianca and Bayley have great chemistry in the ring. It should lead to a fascinating match come Money in the Bank. As for Charlotte Flair and this medical update that's going to be given to us on Raw this week. Now, if this is storyline purposes, there's no way that she's not going to be involved at the match with Rhea Ripley at the pay-per-view, because, I mean, she was given a chop block last week at the end of the match, that 6-woman tag team match, so that wouldn't be enough to rule her out of the match, surely. But if there is a legit injury, that would be really disappointing to see. So, I mean, hopefully we're going to learn more on Raw tomorrow, and of course, you never know what's going to go on currently with things right now in the world. Everything seems to be up in the air and changing left, right and centre, and it really would be a shame for someone like Charlotte if she was injured and unable to compete. And I'd also feel sorry for the Raw creative team, who have had many times had to rewrite the Women's Championship picture this calendar year alone. So I'm hoping it's not going to be anything too serious. I feel, if you had to ask me, put me on the spot, I do feel this is storyline driven, so I think it's nothing to worry about, and I think that perhaps we might, either it's going to worm to drag this on until SummerSlam, or I think it's just going to be a complete ruse. Rhea Ripley's going to come out and it's just going to be a complete swerve and try and build heat for the pay-per-view. Just before we go into the Zelina Vega topic, Dylan Ketchum also asking what is next for Zelina. I will tackle all under one here. It was shocking, wasn't it, to see her come back to SmackDown, honestly. I did not see it coming. Yes, there was rumours a couple of months ago she was spotted at the Performance Centre. I think it was going to be with Simone Johnson at the time, so everyone kind of said, well, maybe it's a bit of training, maybe it's just to help her. Who knew what the situation was going to be? I think a lot of people expected that perhaps she would be AEW bound because of the fact that Andrade El Idolo had gone there and had said in an interview that he would love her as his manager. But he did say earlier this week that there's other things going on and no one quite knew what that was going to be. I don't think anybody expected her to actually come on SmackDown this week and just walk straight back into television. My reaction, it's shocking. But you know what? If she's happy to be back and she's happy to be there, I'm happy for her. That's what's the most important thing. Anything you see in social media from other people, completely irrelevant, ignore it. It's good to see, if she's happy to be back, that she is there. But at the same time, how shocking and surprising it was, and for a great opportunity she walks into, SmackDown needed more women, needed arguably another heel, and needed people to fill out this ladder match. And Zelina does tick all the boxes. She has got a great character. She's very good on the mic, and she showed that off with Liv Morgan very, very quickly. The disappointing part is, yes, she had the match with Liv Morgan, and she lost very quickly in 2 to 3 minutes. It's not really the way you want to be presented coming back onto TV. But of course, people will remember that this week. Will people remember that in a month's time if Zelina Vega was the one to win Money in the Bank? They probably wouldn't. But is she going to win Money in the Bank? I really can't see it. So, I mean, Zelina Vega, it's great to see her back, but here's the next thing for it. We have to remember as well, Zelina Vega coming in isn't going to be your next women's champion, in my personal opinion at this stage. She would have probably a road to go to get to that position. WWE probably would see her as that mid-card area for the women's division, probably someone who will get TV time, probably will be elevating other talents at this point. And of course, you know, when we look at the idea that the draft could happen, rumour names that could be coming up as well, people like Toni Storm, Shotzi Blackheart, that would be good for them to get a victory over Zelina Vega to establish themselves on the main roster. I can see Zelina doing that sort of role right now. Perhaps she would be quite good for a tag team. Like I say, she's decent on the mic as well, so that could be a good fit for her. I can't think, though, off the top of my head, probably a good tag team partner for her at this stage, but we'll have to wait and see what WWE does have in mind. But I hope that she finds a prominent role on TV, because certainly I'm pleased to see her back. I think that she does have a role that she can play. She was great as a manager as well, and of course, of her coming back, the question marks do start to lead to, well, will Aleister Black come back? There's been rumours going on about that WWE already regret that release. Will he choose to go somewhere else, or is he going to come back? Because, you know, this time a couple of weeks ago, to our knowledge, you know, neither of them work for WWE, so one is back. Will both come back? Perhaps Zelina Vega could be the manager for Aleister Black, and we can actually see that storyline play out, like I said earlier in the video, with Big E, which I personally would like to see. I was very interested in the direction of what they were doing with Aleister Black on SmackDown before he is released. So for me, there's a number of ideas of what they can do, what they will do, time will tell. But I'm pleased to see her back. I definitely think that there's definitely a fitting role for her on TV, and I'm interested to see how it's going to play out over the next coming weeks and months, starting off, of course, with Money in the Bank. Just before I move on to the next question, there was actually one nitpick that I almost forgot to bring up there for a second. Of course, WWE, I felt, were insulting our intelligence just a little bit, saying that she's just not been around for a long time. Actually, not actually addressing the idea that she's returned to the company or returned to SmackDown like that. I think they should have made it like, oh, she's back, rather than actually just saying, yeah, she's just not been on TV for a while, because, I mean, that just insults everybody's intelligence. So I wasn't a fan of that, I must admit. So that's one real nitpick I do have as well about her return. Not just the fact she lost in 2 minutes, but yeah, anyway, take those aside, I'm really pleased to see her back on SmackDown. Next question, I'm going to put two questions together here for a bulk here, because it's time to talk about Happy Corbin. Didn't catch him saying, do you want to see Baron Corbin in interesting segments? DWE saying, do you think Corbin could ever work as a babyface, as I feel sorry for him as he's lost his Carlton crown in the past couple of weeks? Well, yeah, let's put this under one then. I mean, yeah, we're supposed to feel, I suppose, a bit of sympathy towards Corbin, the way it's been booked. I mean, let's be fair, Corbin's been a babyface for about 3 or 4 weeks now, the way that Nakamura and Boogs have been actively stealing the crown. It's been such a heelish move. I suppose Corbin's done so many bad things over the years that perhaps people are supposed to be going, ha ha Corbin, but no, I'm with you, DW. I feel a bit sorry for him, and with any superstar, of course, I want to see them in interesting and entertaining segments. I mean, I don't want anyone to have boring segments on WWE, but what I would say is this past week, particularly with Corbin, was fascinating, because to see him in this sort of depressed section that we've got right now, you know, I think is an interesting narrative, because you gather sympathy for the character, because, well, I mean, it was entertaining and funny when he came down to the ring entrance, and then we're going to be doing the King Corbin from Greg Hamilton, and he's going, actually, no, it's just Baron Corbin. Cut the music and just, you know, just kick the guy while he's down kind of vibe. That was quite funny. Then seeing what happened with the car, yeah, you felt a bit sorry for him. And then Boogs was just being straight out, being being out of order backstage to Corbin. And he's just like, screw you, man. And you just think to yourself, it's the right reply from Corbin. I'm on Corbin's side here, and if WWE are trying to make Corbin a babyface, they're doing a perfect job in doing so right now. They're going the right way about it. So to ask my opinion on it, I think what they should do is they should try and do this organically, which I know is very difficult to do in the modern market of wrestling, but if you look at NXT, you look at Cameron Grimes, that has organically gotten over, the way that he's brought in the new gimmick and he's sort of had fun with it, and then it's got to the point where now with the $1 Million Man, obviously with those entertaining segments we had, those video packages, LA Knight got into the picture, and that's where now we've started to gather sympathy for Cameron Grimes because of the fact that, you know, that he didn't win the $1 Million Championship, and then of course the big attack that was done there on Ted DiBiase by LA Knight, Cameron Grimes coming for the sympathy. Now there's a potential he could be a butler for LA Knight next week if he loses again. It all gathers sympathy, and the more that they do this with Corbin, people would say, I'm never going to like Corbin, I'm never going to be interested in Corbin does. Just wait and see. I think people will get more and more on board with this, and yet there is the link of what the trademark's going to be, Happy Corbin. Now I'm not sure if I'm personally feeling the name at this moment. I have been singing Pharrell Williams all week since hearing the news, but what I would say is that we have to see where the character direction is going to go, but I certainly think at the moment it's quite fascinating. I'm enjoying it. I would say that Corbin isn't probably suited in ring work as much as a babyface is a heel. Is a very safe style of wrestler, but if you go back to the very early NXT days of his, he was almost having like those Goldberg matches where he was winning in very quick fashion. Once he can get on a roll and find a mojo, probably cut some of the rest holds out. He's got some fun moves in there, like with the deep six and the end of days. They're fantastic moves. So if he can have one or two more moves like to the arsenal as a quick comeback, I think it could work. So it'd be interesting to see the dynamic here. And Happy Corbin, although I'm not a fan of the name, I can't take full credit for this idea. I was watching the Hard Hitting Wrestling show. Deserve to go and check them out. Give them a sub if you haven't already. Ovi was talking about this on his podcast this week, of the idea of perhaps like a Happy Gilmore type character. Obviously, if you've seen that Adam Sandler movie previously, he was like a golfer. He kind of just was a bit nuts when he was swinging and hitting the ball. And yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get a crazy side out of this, a happy, crazy Baron Corbin. Maybe it's a bit of irony out there. Maybe we can get Dr. Shelby in to actually keep him in check. I don't know what they're going to quite do. As long as they don't book him like Shorty G, they did with that once they were sort of booking that storyline a couple of years ago, which ironically was against Corbin at the time. Baron Corbin needed to drop the King gimmick. I think that had gone as far as it could go. I personally was hoping for the Lone Wolf to come back, but let's see what happens with this character, this direction. You're going to gather sympathy. We've all gone through tough times at some point for our life, and to see then someone going through a tough time on TV, you're naturally going to garner that sympathy for him. So let's see how this plays out over the next weeks and months, and I think it has got a lot of potential, but I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments below. Corey BT with our next question now. I think a first time asker as well. Thank you for checking out AskSCW. Asking, hey man, do you think we will finally get Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship after SummerSlam? Great question. I think it's certainly a potential, and I think it will be a B pay-per-view if it was going to happen. Now the idea that John Cena could be coming in to take on Roman Reigns, I think that stops Seth being in the position for a SummerSlam match. So providing what happens with the draft, I think this could be a direction for September. We have seen the link with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns in recent months with the Usos as well. He should have been in position for this championship match. Edge has taken that opportunity. This gives the excuse for Edge and Rollins to have a match at SummerSlam, Rollins to pick up the victory. It then all depends on the draft because, well, I think it's going to come down if Becky Lynch comes back, where Becky will be, because of course they're not going to want to split the couples up. So I could see if Becky's on Raw, that Seth could also move to Raw. So unless everybody moves to Raw, they could do the direction there for September. If not, if they do stay on SmackDown, but if they're on the same show, this happens, but there is a chance they could be separated after SummerSlam. But I really hope it does happen because I think these two have had great chemistry working together in the past, and they are building towards that match. They're doing a good job in building towards it. So let's hope that plans don't change and we do see this. I think Clash of Champions September is the perfect place for this match to go down. Next questions come from Mike, a Tanhabs Mike with us in the house now, and he says that fans have not accepted MSK as faces, but are behind Ciampa and Thatcher even though they are heels. Why do you think that is happening, and should Triple H turn MSK heel and turn Ciampa and Thatcher babyface? And how would you book Gargano versus Kross? Should Gargano be the one that wins the NXT title from Kross at TakeOver Vegas? If so, will the weight turn on Gargano, as Gargano is the only likable person in the way? Two great questions there. I must admit that I do see it as face versus face when I see MSK against Ciampa and Thatcher, because Ciampa and Thatcher had that sort of rivalry going with the grizzled young veterans before, and I didn't see that as heel versus heel. So I personally see Ciampa and Thatcher as baby faces, although you would say in this dynamic they probably were seen as more as the heels of the two teams, because MSK are more the squeaky clean baby faces, if you want, and with Ciampa and Thatcher they've kind of got a bit more grit about them, a bit more edge about them if you want. And of course that was presented quite well this week with their face-to-face, where before this I wasn't so invested in seeing the match between these two teams, but seeing the way that Ciampa was on the mic, and this is the thing, Ciampa was so good on the mic and didn't sell the hit that was given from Nash Carter either. There was no way that MSK were going to get over in this environment. And if it was a bullet pointed promo, MSK just didn't get the point over across as well as perhaps what they needed to gather respect from the fan base. I think that's something that I feel that is why MSK are not connecting as well. I think another reason can be that they came into NXT, they won the Dusty Cup, they won the tag team titles, they've just come in and just won everything. There wasn't really a journey to get them to where they are, and I think that's where fans have found maybe a slight disconnect on why they are liking them. Should they turn them heel though? I mean, if the unrest continues for a while, then I would look into it. But for now, we've had so long of trying to get a well-rounded tag team division in NXT, because it kind of lost its way 12 months ago. It's been addressed and it's been put back to right now. And with MSK, I do think they are a worthy tag team champions. I can't wait for them to take on the Grizzled Young Veterans in a tag team title feud, hopefully. But yeah, with Ciampa and Thatcher in this role, it's interesting. It really, really is interesting. It's all going to tell them what's happening with the result on Tuesday, but I would keep things as it is. For me, it's babyface versus babyface. It's all about, gathering respect, and hopefully fans will give respect to MSK if they get a victory with a fantastic performance and a hard-fought win over someone that's a seasoned veteran in NXT in Tommaso Ciampa, and someone with a great performer as well as Timothy Thatcher. But we're interested to see where the fallout is going to go from here. As for Johnny Gargano and Karrion Kross now, is Gargano the right person to take the title from Kross? Well, in a one-on-one environment, I don't believe it. I just don't see it. The size difference is too much for me. I look at Kross and see the only people that should be taking the belt from him, in my opinion, are either Samoa Joe or Volta. I don't see anyone else currently that would be able to do so. Kross has just been booked as an animal as well, so for me, at this point, Johnny Takeover, they can use Kross as a great way to turn Johnny as babyface. They can use that Johnny Takeover, that spirit. He's being beaten down at every opportunity. Even when he tries to beat Kross down, he's always the one that's on the losing end. I think fans could sort of turn and kind of, Johnny's kind of got that likeable factor. He's got the comedy side that goes with it all, and they can transition that further back into babyface. But I don't see him getting the belt off of Kross. The only way they do so is that they add maybe some sort of stipulation where they haven't got a pin or submit Kross, because I think it's clear to see Kross is wanted by Raw and SmackDown, and it's not going to be in the too distant future that he will be moving up to one of those shows. So could Johnny be the next champion? He certainly well could be, but they would have to book it the right way. Speaking of the way, if they're going to do so. But what would happen with the way afterwards? That's a fascinating point as well, because it does feel like a little bit in recent weeks that the guys and the girls have kind of gone into their individual programs rather than all being together as a unit. But it'll be interesting to see how it will go down. I'm not too sure how the dynamic of the way would continue with that, but I would hope they'd all stay together, because I like them together. I like what they're doing, and yeah, I mean, I'm kind of interested to see how they all would go as baby faces. It would be kind of a fun transition. Would they be accepting of Dexter Lumis all of a sudden, who's kind of had that on-off storyline going on with Indy Hartwell? It would be interesting to see how it's going to play out. But right now, for me, I would prefer Kross to lose the championship in a multi-man match rather than Johnny Gargano. But they have face-to-face on NXT this week. That should be fascinating to see. But for anyone that hasn't seen them yet, my Great American Bash predictions are available on the channel now. A big thank you as well to WrestleMania UK, who was with me on that video as well. And those predictions are there for you to check out now as soon as you checked out the rest of this video. Speaking of potential call-ups into Raw and SmackDown from NXT, Skate Uphill has got our next two questions for us now. And that first one, with the main roster triumphs thus far and inevitable call-ups, what are your expectations for Karrion Kross, Shotzi Blackheart, etc.? And also asking, how would you rate the overall quality of Ring of Honor this year? And do you like how they are building to the women's tournament? Well, let's tackle then with the call-ups first there. Like you say, Karrion Kross, Shotzi Blackheart. Bronson Reed seems nailed on, especially after losing the North American Championship this week to Swerve Scott. Toni Storm was doing a match this week as well. I think that'd be a very smart strategy to have Toni Storm on the main sort of shows, Raw and SmackDown, because there doesn't seem to be a spot for her in NXT. And you look previously with people that have been in NXT, it doesn't always work out when they go to Raw and SmackDown. Some people that don't do well in NXT seem to have more longevity when they go to Raw and SmackDown. Let's look at Alexa Bliss, a fine example here. Alexa Bliss, she had a championship opportunity against Bayley on weekly TV. I don't remember takeovers with Alexa Bliss having, 20-30 minute matches where they stole the show or whatever. She didn't have that role. She was a manager. She sort of built herself up. They saw a placement for her on SmackDown. She came in and all of a sudden she got momentum, and quickly once she got the momentum, because things connected for her on SmackDown, she became a SmackDown Women's Champion. Before you knew it, she went over to Raw, did the same thing there. She's been a 5-time Women's Champion, and it's been like now, 3 years nearly since she's had the Women's Championship, so perhaps that could be in her future going forward with her current gimmick. We'll have to wait and see, but that certainly shows that not always someone that is on NXT does well has to then be called up to Raw and SmackDown, and then they have a chance to succeed. So Toni Storm, a fantastic in-ring talent, and right now there is spaces on the women's divisions on both Raw and SmackDown. If she was to be called up with the way that she's presented, her gimmick if you want, she definitely stands out in the pack, and with her in-ring work as well, I think that she would stand out and have a chance of really succeeding. So I think that definitely that would be a smart play. For Shotzi Blackheart, again, I think I'd see around that mid-card area. She'd probably help out in a tag team sort of area, but sort of with the tank as well. I think Vince McMahon would find that a hoot and would love it, so I think she would be a fun fit on whichever roster she goes to. Wouldn't see her as an immediate women's champion if I had to predict. And also, what shows do you see these people? One of my guess is probably an interesting one. Maybe I have to put this into its own separate video. Expect maybe I'll do a video like this and drop it in the week so I can say where I think they go and stuff like that as well. But Karrion Kross, one I would say right now is I think he has to be opposite to Roman Reigns. I think he's going to be a big deal when he comes to the main roster. I think now he will stay with Scarlett. I don't think they're going to split them up. They'll keep that package together. I think they experimented with the idea with main events and stuff like that. Didn't go to plan, so now they're going to see what they probably can do as a package. And Bronson Reed, I can see him in the mid card. I can see that getting over. He's been organically getting over in NXT, and I think if they can continue that momentum on with Raw and SmackDown the same way they've booked him here, because it's not been overnight and sort of jump into success. Do this on Raw and SmackDown, give the guys some momentum, make sure you say tsunami with the passion Wade Barrett does. I think that it really can succeed. So yeah, I always have high hopes and always hope with these NXT call-ups. More than not, I tend to get disappointed, but I do think that NXT this time, I think there's going to be more call-ups than there's been for a long time. With so many releases, I really think with the drafts this year, Raw and SmackDown is going to feel hopefully fresher than ever. This is a real chance to really hit a reset button. This could be the freshest it's been since 2016, so I'm hoping they go down that avenue. As for Ring of Honor, right, I'm going to be guilty and say something quickly. I haven't really been watching Ring of Honor as much as of late. Just timing's just not allowed me to. But what I would say is I am aware that they've got their Best of the World show coming up very, very shortly. I'm looking forward to checking that out. I know the main event Rouge is, I believe it's Bandido, if I'm not mistaken. Really looking forward to seeing that. I know two are fantastic workers and they should put on a heck of a main event. For the women's tournament, I'm looking forward to watching that. I haven't seen the build up to this point, but I have seen some interviews with Maria Kanellis and the passion that's put into the women's division in Ring of Honor and what they're looking to try and do and build new stars, really trying to build this division up, and I'm really excited for it. I think that they're taking the right steps and right directions, and the stuff that I have watched with ROH this year, and since really they did the Pure Rules last year, that was probably the first time I tuned back in, because I tuned out for a little while at that point as well, for probably about a good year since the Madison Square Garden show. I tuned out then after that until probably the Pure Rules tournament last summer, and I thought that was fantastic, and since then when I have watched Ring of Honor, I've always been impressed, so I hope they can continue going in that direction as they go to this pay-per-view and with the women's tournament. But yeah, it's exciting stuff. It's just not enough hours in the day for me usually to keep up with all this wrestling, but I will do my best with Ring of Honor now that this women's tournament's coming up, and of course with the pay-per-view as well. Elijah of our last series of questions this week. Now, I have already touched on Charlotte and, of course, Corbin as well, but has asked my feelings on the rumours of Tegan Nox returning. Could she debut at Money in the Bank? Perhaps you could help Bayley win. Interesting idea with a heel turn there. And who is the battery charger? Well, I mean, we could put two in one here, because a lot of people are rumouring that Tegan Nox could be the battery charger. I think Tegan Nox would return to NXT rather than actually going to perhaps say SmackDown immediately. But if she was to, I think this should do very well. Though she's a fantastic in-ring talent. Michael Cole was a big fan of Tegan Nox when they did the Mae Young Classic a few years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But Tegan has had some bad injuries, so I wouldn't be surprised if they would put her back in NXT. Maybe, ease her back into the process before putting her on the road on perhaps a Raw or a SmackDown. But could she be the battery charged return superstar? She certainly could do, but I did go with my prediction of being Ridge Holland. I said that from the start, so I've got to stick with that one now. And two more from Elijah then. It says that since Zelina Vega is back, will Aleister Black return? How would I feel about the idea of him actually attacking Cesaro next Friday out of nowhere, or returning for the Money in the Bank? We have two qualifiers already. Unless he was to take Cesaro out of his match, then that would be a potential. And the fifth question there, since Owens win last week, what is next for Sami Zayn? Would I write him off TV, repackage him into a Mankind, or get him a bodyguard? And who would I want to see? Well, as we said in the video, I wouldn't rule out the idea of Aleister Black coming back to WWE. If he wants to, I want to see him continue the rivalry with Big E. They started something, they got it somewhere. That's where I want him to finish it. But Cesaro versus Aleister Black, that was a match I would really want to see. So yeah, I wouldn't say no to that. If that's what they were going to give me on WWE TV, I would say that. But no, I would personally would revisit what they were doing in the program with Big E if Aleister Black was to return at any point. Perhaps maybe taking Big E out of the Money in the Bank ladder match. That could be an interesting dynamic to continue on their feud, because according to a video I saw from Tom Colohue, he actually suggested that Big E, this was supposed to be Aleister Black's spot in the Money in the Bank. That's what Big E got. I don't think he was originally meant to have the spot that he currently has. So that is a bit of interesting part of narrative also. So it'll be fun to see how all will play out. As for Sami Zayn, I wouldn't do anything. I love Sami Zayn as he is. I wouldn't change a thing. I love the conspiracy that is going on with him. I just want the conspiracy to stop on Kevin Owens. I want him to go somewhere else mowing in the card, because Sami Zayn, as he is for me, he's almost like a national treasure. I wouldn't change the gimmick. I wouldn't. He could get a bodyguard, I suppose, but I don't think he necessarily needs one. I think that he doesn't have the trust, and perhaps if he was to look to someone from NXT, I couldn't think of someone that would be the right fit. They've already put out people like Commander Aziz for Apollo Crews. We've already got Omos for AJ Styles. We have those style of characters already. So for me, Sami Zayn, I think he should just go on as himself, doing what Sami does best, and when he loses matches, he should continue to complain and moan, because I must admit, I find it very entertaining watching Sami does the work that he does. Some of the promo work in particular Sami's done this year, I found has been, the comparison with Mankind is very good, because I found it very Mick Foley-esque, and for me, that's why I do believe that Sami Zayn does deserve eventually at some point to find himself on the upper end of the card, because he really can carry things on the stick, tell a very good story, play a character so well. I personally think Sami Zayn should never change. But that's all for me this week anyway. Thank you for watching Ask SCW. As always, hope you've enjoyed this as usual, with all the great questions coming from everybody. If you want to be involved on the next episode, then you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All should be coming up on your screen right now. You can leave a comment on those, or you can drop a comment here on YouTube. Put your question in and leave the hashtag AskSCW. Know to include it in the next episode, and I'll give you a shout out as well. Make sure to follow everybody on Twitter as well that's got involved on this particular one. It's of course a great wrestling community that's all stayed together as one. Like I say, other videos on the channel for you right now. There is a Money in the Bank 2011 Retro Wrestling by Waldridge. Did join me for that. It's available for you to go and check out if you want to. As well as that, say Great American Bash, that is available. Also, the predictions there with Mex WrestleMania UK joining me for that one. Also, I am going to try and look to see if I can do a live stream as well on Tuesday. I want to bring the live Q&A back this week. I've been too busy, unfortunately, to do it in the last week. And looking to do another retro review as well on Wednesday. Looking to do the 25-year anniversary for the NWO forming. That's right, Bash at the Beach 1996. Hogan turning heel, that infamous moment there. Looking to that retro review on the channel. Looking to be joined by Non-Stop Wrestling Chat for that one. So very much looking forward to doing that on Wednesday this coming week. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good one, and I'll see you soon here on SCW, here on YouTube. Have yourselves a great day, and thank you for watching as always. Make sure to like, comment as well. I look forward to interacting with you. Share, and if you've not already done it, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and yeah, check out these great videos on the screen for you right now. Take care. I'll see you next time. Have yourselves a good one.